A single offer of work. A simple conversation. A stranger with a promise. And just like that, a family vanishes without a trace. No clues. No answers. Nothing but a chilling silence. What happened to Ronald Jack, his wife Doreen, and their two young children Russell and Ryan? What led them to disappear, leaving behind only questions that have haunted the people of Prince George for years? This is the story of a family that disappeared overnight, leaving behind an eerie mystery that still baffles investigators to this day. August 2, 1989. A warm summer evening in Prince George, British Columbia. The air is thick with the hum of life. People are out enjoying the evening, going about their business. But somewhere in this town, in the midst of the normal, something is about to happen that will change everything. For one family, this night would mark the beginning of a mystery that would never be solved. Meet Ronald Jack. He's 26 years old, a father, a husband, and a man trying to make a living. He's just like any other person in this small town, working hard to provide for his family. He's a laborer trying to make ends meet in a world that often feels stacked against him. His wife, Doreen, and their two young children, Russell, who's 9, and Ryan, just 4, are his world. They live simply, but they're content. They don't have much, but they have each other. And in a way, that's enough. But life isn't always fair, and for the Jack family, things haven't been easy. They're struggling. Money is tight and opportunities are scarce. They dream of something better, something more stable, a way out of the constant cycle of worry. And that's when, on this fateful evening, a stranger enters their lives. Ronald's at a local pub talking to a few familiar faces. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name. He's unwinding after a long day, thinking about his family, his future. And that's when it happens. A man approaches him. He's a stranger, someone Ronald's never seen before. He's friendly, calm. And he's got something that might just change everything for Ronald and his family. The man offers Ronald a job. It sounds too good to be true. Good paying work, stable hours, a chance to provide for his family in a way that he's been searching for. A logging camp, deep in the forest near Klukult's Lake. It's just the break Ronald's been waiting for. But there's a catch. The man doesn't work at the camp. He's not connected to it in any way. He's just a stranger, offering something that seems too easy, too perfect. But Ronald's desperate. The family needs money and they need it fast. It's an offer he can't afford to turn down. The man tells Ronald that he can take him and his wife to the camp. He offers to drive them there, to give them a fresh start, a new beginning. Ronald thinks about his wife, Doreen, and their two young boys. This could be the opportunity they've been waiting for. He talks to Doreen about it and they both agree. They pack their things, ready for what seems like a new chapter in their lives. At around 10:30 p.m., Ronald, Doreen, and their two boys get into the man's truck. They leave their home behind, heading toward Klukult's Lake. It's a simple decision made in the hope of a better future. No one knows that this will be the last time anyone will see them. No one knows that this is the last time anyone will hear their voices. They drive off into the night, leaving behind only a question mark. A question that will haunt those left behind for years. What happened to the Jack family? Where did they go? And why, after that simple conversation, did they vanish without a trace? What we do know is this: a single offer of work, a single conversation, and a single decision set in motion a chain of events that no one could have predicted. And as the truck disappeared into the night, the Jack family would be lost to the world. Forever. The following morning, the family is gone. No one has heard from them. No phone calls, no messages. No sign of the truck, no sign of the family. What happened during those hours after they left? Was the stranger who offered them a job truly who he said he was? Or did something more sinister happen on that long, dark drive to Klukult's Lake? For the people of Prince George, the search would begin, but it would lead them down a path filled with more questions than answers. But the story doesn't end here. What happened next would shake this small town to its core. And for the Jack family, it would become a mystery that would never be solved. Welcome to True Crime Stories videos. I welcome you, my viewers, and most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing you daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I can take you to Klukult's Lake. There's a logging camp there and they're always looking for workers. It's about 40 kilometers away, not far at all. The work is steady, the pay is good. He pauses, looking around the pub before locking eyes with Ronald. I can help you and your wife get settled there. I'll drive you. All you have to do is say yes. Ronald listens carefully. At first there's doubt. The man is a stranger. He doesn't know him. He doesn't know if this is a scam or if it's something more dangerous. But then his thoughts shift to Doreen and the kids. He thinks of the bills piling up. He thinks of the small, cramped apartment they're all living in. He thinks of his son Russell and how he promised to give him a better life. He thinks of little Ryan, barely old enough to understand what's going on but old enough to sense the worry in his parents' eyes. Ronald's heart beats a little faster, and for a moment he can see a way out. A way to make life easier. The man is offering a lifeline. Could it really be that simple? He glances at the stranger once more. He seems harmless enough, wearing a worn flannel shirt and a faded pair of jeans. His face is rough around the edges, but there's nothing alarming about him. Nothing that screams danger. He could be just another hardworking man trying to help. Or he could be something else entirely. But in that moment, all Ronald can think about is that offer. A chance to break free from their struggles. A fresh start. He feels the weight of the decision settle in his chest. The stranger seems to notice the hesitation. His smile widens just a little. I'll drive you myself. I've got a truck right outside. He points to the window where a dusty old pickup sits parked under a flickering street lamp. You won't have to worry about a thing. Just let me know and I'll take you there tonight. Ronald looks at the man's truck. It's not much to look at. The paint is chipped, the tires look worn, and the rust is creeping in along the edges. But it doesn't matter. At that moment, it doesn't matter what the truck looks like. What matters is that it represents the chance they've been waiting for. Ronald knows the drive will be long, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is getting out of this place. He turns back to Doreen, who's sitting at the table with their children, Russell and Ryan, coloring quietly. He sees the hope in her eyes. She's just as tired as he is. She's just as ready for change. Ronald walks over to Doreen. He leans in close and whispers the offer to her. He says there's work at a logging camp. Good pay. He can take us there tonight? Doreen looks up at him, her tired eyes searching his face. She doesn't ask any questions. She trusts him. She's been with him through every struggle, every setback. She knows how hard he's tried to make a better life for them. And maybe, just maybe, this is it. This is the opportunity they've been waiting for. She nods slowly. There's a spark in her eyes too. A glimmer of hope. Let's do it. Maybe this is what we've been looking for. She stands up, smoothing down her blouse. Together, they begin to gather their things. A few clothes, some toys for the kids, and a handful of belongings that they can carry with them. The stranger waits patiently outside. It's already late, the night stretching on, but it doesn't matter. Tonight, the Jack family is about to take a leap of faith. Tonight, they are about to leave behind everything they know in search of something better. By 10:30 p.m. they're ready. They say goodbye to their little home, the one that has always felt too small, too tight, too filled with worry. With one last glance, they walk out the door. Ronald and Doreen hold hands, their children trailing behind them. Russell, so full of energy and excitement, skips ahead, while little Ryan holds his mother's hand, his face innocent and unaware of what's to come. They climb into the stranger's truck, the engine rumbling to life. The headlights cut through the dark, shining a path forward. And just like that, the Jack family is gone, leaving their small town behind, heading down a road toward a future unknown. They drive off into the night, the silence settling in the truck as the wheels turn on the long, empty road. The stranger doesn't say much. He keeps his eyes on the road, his grip tight on the steering wheel. Ronald's heart beats in his chest, unsure but hopeful. Doreen sits beside him, her hand resting on his. The children are quiet in the back seat. They don't know what lies ahead, but for a moment, it feels like everything might finally be okay. As they disappear into the night, it's the last time anyone will see them. A single truck, a single family vanishing down a dark road, heading toward what seemed like a chance at a better life. But what they couldn't have known was that this road would lead them somewhere much darker, somewhere no one could have predicted. The night stretches on. Hours pass and no one hears from them. Not a word. Not a sound. By morning they're still gone. Their home is empty. The truck nowhere to be found. The only thing that remains is the heavy silence, and a growing sense of dread that starts to settle over the town. Where are they? Where did they go? And why hasn't anyone heard from them? The search begins, but the trail is already gone cold. There are no signs, no clues, no hint of what happened after that fateful night. What did the stranger want? What happened during that drive? And why, after everything seemed so hopeful, did the Jack family vanish so completely? The mystery begins to unfold, but what is uncovered leaves more questions than answers. And as the investigation digs deeper, a chilling realization begins to form. This is no ordinary disappearance. The morning after they left, the Jack family was gone. No one had heard from them, no one had seen them. The house was quiet, unnervingly quiet. Ronald and Doreen had always checked in, always sent word if they were running late if something came up. But this time there was nothing. No phone call, no message. The children, Russell and Ryan, were missing too. It was as if they had never been there at all. And in that silence, something started to settle in, something cold and unsettling. By mid-morning, the worry started to grow. The hours passed and still no word. Doreen's mother, who had lived just down the street, couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She knew her daughter wouldn't just disappear, not without a word. She called the police, her voice shaky with fear. As the hours turned into a day, then two, the fear turned into panic. The people in Prince George began to whisper. Where were they? What had happened to the Jack family? It was a small town, and when something like this happened, it felt like the world shifted. Everything felt wrong, as if the very ground under their feet had been pulled away. The police sprang into action. They began asking questions, retracing Ronald's steps, trying to piece together the last moments before he disappeared. They went to the pub where Ronald had met the stranger. The bartender remembered him. He'd been there talking to that man. But no one could recall the stranger's name. No one knew anything about him. Just that he'd been there and then gone. The police took the information and began their search. They drove out to Klukelt's Lake, the place the stranger had promised them. But the roads were quiet. There were no signs of the truck. No signs of the family. The search party scoured the area, combing through the dense forest, the quiet shores of the lake. They looked at every truck, checked every road. But the only thing they found was emptiness. They scoured every inch of the land around the lake, but it was as if the Jack family had never been there. No tire tracks. No broken branches. No abandoned belongings. Nothing. Just empty, quiet wilderness. The search stretched on for days, but the Jack family was nowhere to be found. Back in Prince George, people started to talk. Friends, family, neighbors, everyone was asking the same question. Where were they? What had happened to them? There were no answers. The phone lines were dead. The truck was gone. And as the days passed, the sense of unease turned into something darker, something that everyone in town started to feel in their bones. It wasn't just a missing persons case. This was something more. The Jack family hadn't just gone off for a trip or decided to disappear. They had vanished like smoke in the air, leaving nothing behind. The police knew it. They knew there was something wrong. Something more was at play here. But the questions kept piling up. What had really happened on that drive to Klukelt's Lake? What had been said in that truck between Ronald, Doreen, and the stranger? And why hadn't anyone seen or heard from them since? The police looked at every angle, every possibility. Could the stranger have been a con artist? Or was there something more sinister behind the disappearance? They tried to piece together the clues. The last known sighting of the Jack family was when they got into the truck. The stranger had been with them, but no one knew who he was, where he came from, or where he had gone. It was as if he had never existed. No one could find a single trace of him. The truck had disappeared without a trace. The family had vanished like they were swallowed by the earth itself. As the investigation stretched on, the sense of mystery deepened. There were no answers, only more questions. How could a family just vanish like that? How could they simply disappear without leaving a single sign of where they had gone? The police were at a loss. The community was on edge. Everyone felt the weight of uncertainty bearing down on them. No one knew what had happened. No one knew what to believe. But there was something the police hadn't considered. A piece of the puzzle they hadn't even thought to look for. Something that would change everything. And it was hiding in plain sight. Days turned into weeks and the mystery deepened. No one had seen or heard from the Jack family. The search continued, but it was like chasing shadows. The police were running out of leads and the community's hope was fading. But then something unexpected happened. The tip came in. A witness who claimed to have seen something strange, something that didn't add up. But would this new lead be the breakthrough they so desperately needed, or would it just lead them further into the unknown? The mystery of the Jack family's disappearance was far from over. And as new pieces of the puzzle began to surface, one question remained. Could anyone ever uncover the truth of what really happened that night? As the days turned into weeks, the search for the Jack family became more desperate. The police knew they had to find answers, but no one knew where to begin. They turned their attention to the only lead they had, the stranger who had made the promise of work. Who was he? What did he want with the Jack family? Why had he been so quick to offer them a ride, a job, a new life? The questions piled up, but the answers remained just out of reach. The first step was to dig into the stranger's background. The police needed to know everything about him, his name, his history, his connections. But when they started asking around, they hit a dead end. No one knew him. No one had seen him before. The man seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. There was no trace of him anywhere. No address, no phone number, no past. It was as if he had never existed at all. The more the police searched, the more the stranger seemed to slip further away. His truck had vanished. His name couldn't be traced. No one could even recall the color of his eyes or the sound of his voice. The only thing they had to go on was a fleeting memory from the bartender at the pub, who said he had seen the man there that night. But that wasn't enough to lead them anywhere. The mystery deepened with each passing hour, and the more the police tried to follow the trail, the more it seemed to fade into nothingness. The investigation expanded. Officers interviewed neighbors, family members, anyone who might have seen or heard anything unusual. But again there were no answers. Everyone in the town of Prince George was left with the same empty feeling. Something was wrong, but no one could say what. The police expanded their search to other nearby towns, but there was still no sign of the Jack family. The community began to feel the weight of uncertainty, and with each passing day, hope began to fade. The search intensified. Flyers were printed, plastered on every lamppost, every bulletin board, every corner of the town. They were distributed far and wide, reaching neighboring towns, even reaching areas where the Jack family had never been. The faces of Ronald, Doreen, Russell, and Ryan stared back at everyone who passed by, pleading for anyone to know something. But despite the hundreds of flyers, the tips came in slow, and none of them led anywhere useful. The police tried to follow every lead, but nothing seemed to make sense. No one could remember seeing the family on the road. No one had reported any accidents. No one had witnessed a breakdown. The only thing that was certain was that the Jack family had disappeared without a trace. They hadn't even left behind their belongings. No suitcases. No backpacks. Nothing but empty space where they had once been. As the weeks wore on, the questions started to pile up. Could they have gotten lost on the road? Could something have gone wrong during that drive to Klukelt's Lake? The area was remote, but not so isolated that something couldn't have been found. The police thought maybe they had encountered trouble on the road, an accident, a breakdown, anything that might explain their disappearance. But there was no sign of that either. No skid marks, no traces of tires off the road. It was as if the family had just driven into thin air. But there was another possibility, one that the police couldn't ignore. Could there be something more sinister happening here? Was there more to the story than just a family getting lost or running into trouble? The deeper the investigation went, the more chilling it seemed. Maybe the stranger wasn't just a man offering a ride to a family in need. Maybe he was hiding something. Maybe he had something to do with their disappearance. But there were no concrete answers. No proof. Just a growing sense of dread. As the investigation continued, the police began to turn their attention to the possibility that the family had been the victim of foul play. But who could have done something like this? Why would anyone want to harm a family like the Jacks? They had no enemies, no disputes, no obvious reason why anyone would want to make them disappear. The more they looked, the more questions they uncovered, but the fewer answers they had. The town was shaken. The Jack family had been well known, loved by the people who lived there. Their disappearance was a blow to everyone. The fear spread through the streets. No one knew who to trust anymore. The police knew they were getting closer to something, but they still didn't have a clue what had happened. What could have happened to the family that night? Where could they have gone? And why hadn't anyone seen them since? But just as the investigation seemed to be running out of steam, something unexpected happened. A new piece of the puzzle surfaced. A witness came forward, someone who claimed to have seen something strange, something they couldn't explain. It wasn't much, just a small detail, but it could be the breakthrough they needed. Could this new lead be the key to unlocking the mystery? Or was it just another dead end? The witness's account was vague, but it raised more questions than it answered. They spoke of a strange vehicle, a shadowy figure near the area where the Jack family had been last seen. It wasn't much to go on, but it was enough to reignite the investigation. Could this lead point the police in the right direction? Or would it only pull them deeper into the dark? The search for answers was far from over, and the truth was still just out of reach. But one thing was certain. The deeper they dug, the more they uncovered a truth no one was prepared for. As the months turned into years, the case of the missing Jack family became something more than just a disappearance. It became a haunting mystery that lingered in the air, unanswered and unresolved. And with that mystery came theories, all sorts of theories, some more chilling than others. The kind that made people shiver at night, wondering if they were somehow connected to the truth. But even after all this time, no one knew for sure what had happened. One theory that circulated early on was that the stranger wasn't just some random man with a good-hearted offer of work. No, some believed that he was part of something much bigger. Could he have been a human trafficker, someone who preyed on vulnerable families, offering them a way out of their struggles? Maybe he had a far darker plan in mind. The Jack family had been struggling financially, and a tempting offer of work, a new start, must have seemed like a dream come true. But what if that dream had turned into a nightmare? What if the stranger had other plans that no one could have imagined? And if this theory was true, what happened to the Jack family after they left that night? Were they sold? Were they hidden away somewhere, their lives stolen from them without a trace? But there were other ideas, other theories that cast a shadow over the case. Some believed that the family had simply met with foul play. Maybe they had been attacked, maybe they had been killed. But if that was the case, why had no one found their bodies? How could something so terrible happen, and yet leave behind no evidence, no signs of violence? Where were their remains? Why didn't the police find a single clue that pointed to what had happened to them? Their absence was complete. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole, leaving behind nothing but silence. The more time passed, the more the questions piled up. People started to connect the disappearance of the Jack family to a darker, even more unsettling possibility. The Highway of Tears, a stretch of remote highway stretching across British Columbia, had been the site of numerous disappearances over the years. Women, men, and children alike had vanished without a trace along that desolate road. Could the Jack family have been yet another victim of the same fate? Could they have been targeted by someone, a killer who had made a habit of preying on the vulnerable, the lonely travelers who passed through? The timing seemed to fit. A man offering them a ride, taking them out to a remote area. It was chilling to think that they might have fallen victim to the same dark force that had claimed so many others along that road. This theory sent a ripple of fear through the community. The Highway of Tears was already known for its history of disappearances, but the Jack family's case seemed to tie it all together in a way that no one had expected. The idea that their fate could be linked to something so evil, something so methodical, was enough to make anyone's blood run cold. Could it be that there was someone out there waiting for their next victim? Someone who had been responsible for not just one but multiple disappearances, each one adding to the mystery of the Highway of Tears? Then there was the theory that some didn't even want to consider. The idea that maybe the Jack family hadn't been the victim at all. What if they had gone into hiding, intentionally disappearing from their lives, leaving everything behind? What if they had planned it all, staging their own vanishing for reasons unknown? This theory was met with skepticism, but some couldn't help but wonder if it was possible. Ronald Jack had been struggling to make ends meet, and maybe he had decided to start over somewhere far away, taking his family with him. But if that was true, why hadn't they ever made contact? Why hadn't they reached out to anyone? Why hadn't they used the money they had, or tried to send a letter, just to let someone know they were okay? It didn't add up, and the more people thought about it, the more it seemed like this was the least likely explanation of them all. Each of these theories left a bitter taste, and none of them offered any real answers. They were all unsettling, all dark in their own way, and none of them gave the people of Prince George any closure. They were just fragments of a story that no one could fully understand, pieces that didn't fit together no matter how hard they tried. Some wanted to believe that there was a simple answer, that the Jack family had gotten lost or maybe they had made a mistake. But as the years went by and more questions piled up, it became clear that there was no simple answer to this mystery. Theories continued to emerge, each one as chilling as the last. Some believed that the Jack family had been targeted by a serial killer, someone who had been watching them for some time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Maybe they had seen something they shouldn't have. Maybe they had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And maybe, just maybe, their disappearance wasn't random at all. But without any concrete evidence, these ideas remained nothing more than speculation. As the years turned into decades, the mystery of the Jack family's disappearance seemed to take on a life of its own. Theories swirled around the case, but the truth remained as elusive as ever. The police had no answers, the family had no closure, and the people of Prince George were left to wonder if they would ever know what happened to the family they once knew. The silence was deafening. And in that silence, one question loomed larger than all the others. What really happened to Ronald Jack, his wife Doreen, and their two sons, Russell and Ryan? Was it something as simple as a tragic accident, or was there something darker at play? Would the truth ever come to light, or would this mystery remain unsolved forever? But just as the case seemed to be fading into the shadows of time, a new lead surfaced, something that no one could have expected. A discovery that would challenge everything they thought they knew. Could this new piece of evidence finally unlock the mystery? Or would it only lead to more confusion? The investigation was far from over, and the truth, it seemed, was just within reach. But would it be enough to solve the puzzle once and for all? 7 years after the Jack family vanished without a trace, a new ray of hope appeared, flickering in the darkness. It came in the form of an anonymous tip, a whisper, a shadow of a clue that no one had expected. A person who had chosen to remain hidden claimed to know where the remains of the Jack family were buried. They said they knew where the bodies of Ronald, Doreen, Russell, and Ryan could be found. This could be the breakthrough the investigators had been waiting for, the moment they had dreamed about for years. It was 1996. 7 long years had passed since that fateful night when the Jack family disappeared into thin air. The case had gone cold, but this tip breathed new life into it. The police were cautious but hopeful. The tipster had not left their name, and there was no way of knowing if this would lead to the answers they desperately sought, or if it was another cruel hoax. Still, the chance was too great to ignore. The authorities had to act fast. They had to see if there was truth to the claim. The tip led investigators to a ranch on the outskirts of town. The caller had been vague, but they had insisted that the family's remains were hidden somewhere on this property. With little to go on, the police rushed to the site, hoping that this would finally provide the closure they had been searching for all these years. The ranch was isolated, remote, the kind of place that seemed perfect for something sinister to be hidden away. It felt like the kind of place where secrets could bury themselves in the ground, waiting to be uncovered. The police arrived, their hearts heavy with anticipation. This could be the answer they had been waiting for, the missing piece of the puzzle. They began their search, scouring the land, turning over soil, and digging in places where the tipster said they might find something. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the ranch as officers worked tirelessly. Every time the shovel hit the earth, every time they dug deeper, they hoped they were getting closer. Maybe this was it. Maybe they were about to find the Jack family. But as the hours passed and the digging continued, their hopes began to fade. The ground gave up nothing. No bones. No remains. No signs of the Jack family. Just more dirt, more empty earth. Nothing but the silence of the ranch, and the growing feeling that they had been led down another dark path to nowhere. They dug deeper, moving equipment, scouring the land with metal detectors, searching for any clues that might give them the breakthrough they so desperately needed. But the result was the same, nothing. No bodies. No traces. Not even a scrap of clothing or a piece of evidence that could confirm they were in the right place. The ranch was clean, untouched. It was as if the family had never been there at all. The search stretched into the night, but it became clear that the tip had been false. Or at least it led them nowhere. The ranch was empty. The family's remains were nowhere to be found. The authorities were left standing there in the cold night air, with only their disappointment to keep them company. Another lead had turned to dust, another door slammed shut. The mystery of the Jack family's disappearance had not been solved, it had only deepened. The anonymous tip had promised so much, and yet, it had delivered nothing. For the investigators, this was a bitter blow. They had invested so much hope in this lead, so much energy in searching for answers, only to be met with more questions. Was the tipster lying? Or was there some other reason why the bodies weren't where they were supposed to be? Had they been warned? Had the killer hidden the remains better than anyone could have imagined? For the people of Prince George, the disappointment was palpable. After 7 years of waiting, after countless dead ends, this new development had given them a glimmer of hope. But once again that hope had been dashed. The Jack family was still gone, still missing, still part of a mystery that no one could solve. The case seemed to slip further and further away, and the town's fear and frustration only grew. The feeling that they would never know the truth, that this case would never be solved, hung heavy over the community. But even though this tip had led to nothing, it wasn't the end. The search for answers continued. The police didn't give up. The case wasn't closed, not yet. And as the years dragged on, new theories began to emerge, new leads came to light, and new questions were raised. But for now, the disappearance of the Jack family remained unsolved, a cold case that no one could crack. Just as hope seemed to slip away once more, a strange thing happened. A piece of evidence appeared out of nowhere, something that no one had expected, something that changed everything. But what did it mean? Was it a breakthrough? Or was it just another dead end? The search for the truth was far from over, and the answers were still waiting to be found. But this new discovery, this could be the key that unlocks everything. Or perhaps, it's just another twist in a story that refuses to end. Years have passed, and still, the Jack family's disappearance remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in British Columbia. The case is as cold as the northern winds and investigators have nothing. No new evidence. No fresh leads. No answers. It's as if the Jack family simply vanished into the vast unknown, disappearing off the face of the earth without a trace. The town of Prince George, the community where they lived, has never been the same. That empty space where they once were continues to echo in the hearts of those who knew them. But the question that haunts everyone is the same. What happened to them? What happened to Ronald Jack, the hard-working father trying to make a better life for his family? What happened to Doreen, his loving wife, who had so much to look forward to? What about little Russell, just 9 years old, and young Ryan, barely 4? How could an entire family disappear without a single trace? These are the questions that continue to haunt everyone who has followed their story. No matter how much time passes, the unknowns keep growing. The pain doesn't fade. It only deepens. There's a hole in the lives of those who loved them. And it's a hole that's never been filled. People tried to make sense of it. Some believed that maybe it was an accident. Maybe they had gone off the road somewhere, gotten lost, or had some kind of trouble along the way. But if that were the case, why was there no sign of a crash? No abandoned truck. No footprints in the dirt. Nothing to suggest they had even traveled the route they were supposed to take. Others, though, believed something much darker had happened. Could the stranger who offered them the job have been hiding something? Could he have been a part of something bigger, something more sinister? And if he was, why hasn't anyone been able to find him? Why did he disappear just as mysteriously as the Jack family? Some believe the family was taken by force. Perhaps they were victims of a crime, the kind of crime that no one talks about, the kind that leaves no trace. But if they were victims, why were their bodies never found? No evidence was left behind, not even a hint of what happened. It was as if they were swallowed up by the earth, never to be seen again. And even if they were murdered, where did their bodies go? Why hasn't anyone found them? These questions hang heavy in the air, unanswered, unresolved. Then there are those who think of a more chilling possibility. Could they have fallen victim to something bigger than just a stranger with bad intentions? Could they have been part of a pattern, part of something more organized, something far darker than anyone had imagined? Some people pointed to the Highway of Tears, that long, lonely stretch of road where so many people have gone missing over the years. Could the Jack family have been swept up in the same tragedy that's claimed so many others? Was it the same fate that befell other victims along that highway, or was it something else entirely? No one knows. The more you dig into this case, the more twisted and complicated it becomes. Every theory leads to another dead end. But what we do know with certainty is this: the Jack family is gone. They're still missing. Still absent. Their story, their lives, their hopes and dreams, all of it continues to hang in the balance, unresolved. And this unresolved story haunts the community of Prince George and beyond. It haunts the investigators who have poured so many years into trying to solve this. It haunts the people who love them, who remember them with aching hearts. And it haunts the town, a quiet reminder that sometimes, no matter how hard you search, no matter how many questions you ask, some answers are just out of reach. The mystery continues to live on. The questions are still there, lingering like shadows in the dark. And no matter how many years go by, the truth has remained just beyond the grasp of those who need it most. Was it an accident? Was it foul play? Or was it something else entirely? There are so many pieces to this puzzle, but none of them fit together. But maybe, just maybe, there's still something out there. Maybe there's a clue that hasn't been discovered, a piece of the puzzle that hasn't been found. There are still whispers of information, stories that haven't been fully told. And one day, perhaps, someone will finally come forward with the truth, and the family's fate will be revealed. But there's something even more chilling. Something that makes you wonder, could the truth have been hidden all along right under everyone's noses? What if the answers to this mystery are closer than anyone has realized? In the next chapter of the Jack family's story, a new twist emerges, one that could finally lead to the truth. But is it too late? Will the answers be enough to bring peace to the family's loved ones? Or will it just bring more pain? Stay tuned. The disappearance of the Jack family is one of Canada's most chilling mysteries. It has haunted the hearts and minds of the people in Prince George and beyond for decades. Despite all the time, the investigations, the theories, and the hopes that something would break the case wide open, the truth has never come. There are no answers. There's no explanation for how a family could simply vanish like that. And perhaps we may never have a clear answer. The Jack family story has become part of the fabric of Canadian folklore. It's a case that people reference when they talk about missing persons, especially those who have disappeared under strange circumstances. When the words Highway of Tears are spoken, the Jack family's name often comes up, tied to the same unnerving mystery that surrounds other unsolved disappearances. The case of the Jack family is a part of that dark history, and it has become an eerie symbol of how something as ordinary as a family's hope for a better life can end in silence, with no one knowing where they went or why. Their story is a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be, how quickly everything can change, how a simple decision, a moment in time, can alter the course of a life forever. One moment they were leaving their home, full of hopes for a fresh start, and the next they were gone. Just gone. No trace. No explanation. The unknown stretched out before them and it swallowed them whole. In an instant, everything that mattered to them vanished, leaving behind only empty spaces and unanswered questions. It's a tragic truth, that sometimes no matter how hard we search, no matter how much we long for answers, the truth remains hidden. For years, people tried to piece together the mystery of the Jack family, but every clue they followed, every lead they chased, led them to more dead ends. The family is still lost in the fog of uncertainty. Their names live on in the hearts of those who remember, but they are forever a part of a mystery that has no conclusion. The pain of not knowing is something that will never fade for those who loved them. Ronald, Doreen, Russell, and Ryan Jack, forever lost to the unknown. Their faces may fade from the memories of some, but for those who loved them, the question will never go away. What happened to them? Where did they go? And why did it have to end like this? The questions remain, lingering like a shadow that refuses to leave. And the search continues, even if it's only in the minds of those who still remember the story, the family that vanished, and the quiet, haunting mystery that still waits for answers. But perhaps the most chilling part of all this is the thought that, even though the family is gone, the story is still very much alive. It lives on in the people who remember them, in the conversations that are still had, in the efforts of investigators who never gave up. It lives on in the hearts of those who, even now, are still asking the same questions that have never been answered. Because sometimes the unanswered questions are the ones that keep us searching. They are the ones that keep us wondering. But what if, just what if, the answers have been hiding in plain sight all along? What if the mystery isn't as closed as it seems? Could there be something, a clue, a piece of the puzzle that someone overlooked all these years? The Jack family story is far from finished. Maybe, just maybe, the truth is waiting to be uncovered. And when it is, it could change everything we thought we knew about this haunting disappearance. Stay tuned for what might be the final twist in this heartbreaking tale. Thank you for watching, for taking this journey into the mystery of the Jack family's disappearance. As we've seen, the case is not just a story. It's a puzzle that continues to haunt everyone who has followed it. It's the kind of case that stays with you, lingering in the back of your mind, leaving you with more questions than answers. The search for the truth has been long and painful, and the pain is still felt by the community, by the family's loved ones, and by all of us who have wondered what happened to them. Sometimes the truth is hidden in the smallest details. Sometimes a single clue, a single word, a forgotten moment, can make all the difference. In this case, we followed the trail of what we know, but there's still so much more we don't. We can't give up, not until every stone has been turned, every lead followed, and every voice heard. Every person who knew the Jack family, who may have seen something no matter how small, holds the key to bringing this mystery to a close. If you have any information about this case, anything at all, please reach out to the authorities. Even the tiniest detail could be the one thing that breaks the silence. You never know when something that seemed insignificant might become the piece of the puzzle that someone needs. If you were there, if you knew something, or if you've heard anything, don't stay silent. The Jack family deserves the truth. Their story deserves an ending, no matter how painful or unsettling that may be. And to everyone who still carries the memory of Ronald, Doreen, Russell, and Ryan, know that you are not alone. The questions remain, yes. The search is ongoing, even if it's just in the hearts of those who continue to remember them. But there is power in remembering. There is power in keeping the story alive. As long as we ask the questions, as long as we hold on to the hope that one day the answers will come, this story will continue to matter. So let this case serve as a reminder that no one is truly forgotten, and no mystery is ever really solved until all the truth has been uncovered. The Jack family may be lost, but they are not gone. They remain in the minds of those who care, in the hopes of those who believe that one day the answers will come. As time passes, the case may grow colder, but the search for justice never stops. We may not have all the answers today, but we cannot stop looking. We owe it to the Jack family, to their loved ones, and to every person who has ever vanished under similar circumstances, to keep searching, to keep asking, and to never forget. Perhaps, somewhere in the world, the truth is waiting to be uncovered. Perhaps one day someone will step forward with the missing piece of the puzzle. And when that day comes, when the truth is finally revealed, it will not only bring closure to the Jack family's case, but it will remind us all that no mystery is beyond the reach of those who are willing to seek the truth, no matter how long it takes. So, again, if you know anything, don't stay silent. Reach out. Speak up. It could be the one thing that brings this mystery to an end, and it could finally give the Jack family the peace they've been denied for so long. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Keep asking the questions. Keep searching for the truth. And remember, the story is not over. As long as we continue to care, to ask, to search, the truth has not been lost forever. It's just waiting to be found.